Hello, Auvorians and subscribers worldwide. Today is the 9th of June, 10 a.m. Of course, that's Pacific time here where I am in SoCal. I'd like to welcome everybody to the call. Take a look at the chat window, if I may. Let's open up the chat window. Can everybody see my screen? Should say risk disclosure. And thank you. Hello, welcome all. Again, my name is Steve Vetterl, and this is the Midweek Software Strategy Session call. I am your CMA risk manager. We are trying to mitigate risk this week by having live accounts mostly off, as I'd mentioned on Saturday. So just from a volatility standpoint, I know we've had a huge lift in the last week of equities and a lot of craziness related to the US dollar's drop, sending a lot of currencies into a tailspin and out of a lot of the patterns that they were, in some cases, trends that they were in. So let's talk about that a little bit today. A bit of an echo of what we saw Saturday. For those of you that do not subscribe to either mine or Jesse's Telegram channels, please do so. One of them is called Trade Tracking with Steve Vetterl. The other one's called Trade Tracking with Jesse Kamer. Kammer. So the risk disclosure: trading the foreign exchange markets carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin and utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk. So we've certainly seen that the last couple of weeks, and a complete loss of investment funds. So hear me clearly. Do not trade live capital with money you cannot afford to lose. Okay? So if you're sharing any of the results from what I'm doing, what Jesse's doing, any of the Alexander Einstein or Iris coaches, please do not use the term company recommended settings. So Auvoria Prime does not have any recommended settings. We are not a financial advisory firm. We just license software the users can use however they want at their own risk and discretion. So some of the software does come with default settings out of the box. You can see that some of those default settings will be switching soon to the conservative, what we call high risk settings. But we are essentially licensing software that users can use however they want at their own risk and discretion. So Auvoria Prime has nothing to do with a customer's brokerage account. We don't solicit or take investments. We do not trade your Forex account for you. We do not recommend any brokers. So we're just licensing software and selling some amazing education. A shout out to Daisy Duncan and our good coaches on that area. Make sure you're watching the Forex education. So the company recommended. So as my mantra is trading safely equals happy trading. So let's take a look at the Forex markets. Moving over to share my screen with Euro US dollar. So as you can see, since about the middle of May, we broke from what certainly can be argued a sloppy wedge pattern, and the markets essentially for the euro has just screamed higher. So to the tune of a lot. So it's really sent the markets into a crazy spin. You know, and honestly, I talked to a gentleman the other day, real nice guy, traded on a much larger account. He's had his account off since the beginning of February. Just turned the whole thing off. Had a great return, I guess, in the last 6 or 7 months. He said, I'm off. It's just been turned off. You know, why do you guys continue to have the settings on? I said, well, you know, people still want to make money in volatile markets, right? So here is the 25K live account. It's in euros. It's sitting at Luke Roar Forex, New Zealand guys. And this particular week, we have about a 0.35% drawdown. Account's still done really well. So that's the live account. Every Tuesday night, I force activate trailing if week's performance is positive. So for example, if you're 0.5 up, I'll put the start at 0.5 and the trail by 0.5 for break even. but allowing it to keep going. So only 1 week so far. I couldn't do that on Tuesday. But that's essentially what's going on. So this particular account has what's called a high volatility settings. If you do not know what the high volatility settings are, please don't ask me that question in Q&A today, because we've covered that in exhaustive detail on the Saturday and Saturday previous call, which was with Tyler when we introduced this. So I know there may be some upset. Steve's not going to show the settings, but it's forcing you to go back and see the previous calls, because honestly, talked to a lot of people this week, especially folks in my up and down line. I still, even with the browbeating of my own team, I still have people that haven't seen the last Saturday and Sunday, which is disturbing. So, and one guy, I told him I'd buy him a pizza if he watched the video. But in any case, make sure you get out there and watch it. It certainly can be helpful. So what notes do I want to go over here? Actually, let's take a quick peek back. If you haven't seen the Forex Factory calendar, I do some settings in here and make some changes to it. Take out some of the currencies and some of the impacting folders and just hit apply filter. That's essentially just filters out the red stuff. Looking at the current week, I probably, as I mentioned on Saturday, if you're live trading, which I dissuaded, if you will, on Saturday, I probably would have the systems off before tomorrow morning. This would be New York time, which is what you're looking at on the screen. So I've been trying to be consistent with my systems here and showing New York time, which is Eastern Standard Time here in the U.S. So have everything off before the core CPI hits, which is 5:30 a.m. New York. If you are up a little bit and you don't want to take the volatility, as I know some have pinged me on, they've done pretty well last couple days. I would say just turn it off and be happy with that at this point. So that was kind of my suggestion. If somebody wants to go further into this week, remember, you can always make changes in settings to sort of force the system to shut trading down by just moving that trailing equities I'd mentioned earlier to a smaller number. In this case, for the big account, we use 0.5. So if we take a look at just the history of trades in the large account, everything's sorted in history. Everything's sorted in history by most recent date all the way back. Okay. So what I advise is I always do is to go back and look and see what has executed. You don't necessarily need to do a deep dive, but you just want to go back and see what pairs are doing well and what aren't. Okay. And then you could just click on a summary right here and see which pairs are profitable. And there's our old friend, the brutality that is the Euro JPY. I want to trade the ring and have exposure from the diversification for a larger account of 3 pairs, but I just don't like this pair. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it at this point. Of course, I've been sort of griping about this for the last 2 weeks, but I guess usually when you go in and disrupt the trading system, you don't let it be its great self. That's usually saying that I'm smarter than the trading system, which I'm not. And I could just see if I went in and turned off Euro JPY, then all of a sudden it'll start to do well. I hope I'm actually wrong on that. It continues to be crap because it'll solidify me wanting to pull it out. But just the volatility has been rough. So do me a favor, all, if you would, let's set up some Q&A because I don't have a ton of time today. Marianne, you can, if Mariana, if I got your name right, we showed the settings on in my trade channel. Let me just see if I can find that. Trade Track with Steve Federal. I have so much content in here. It's getting to be a total library. So if one of my partners is on this call, just drop the settings in the Telegram channel so I can post it to the group. and or move those settings forward. But essentially, they're the okay, Jennifer asks, how do you feel about placing manual trades against the software when it is in high drawdown? I personally don't have the time to sit in front of the system during the day. I'm out dealing with clients and trading, equities and stuff on the other side of the coin. I don't really have the time for that. If one is good at discretionary or manual trading, and that's a big if in many subscribers' cases because they don't have the experience, I would rather just let the software play out instead of manually getting in and starting to adjust trades around. If someone can prove to me with relative depth of experience that they're good at what they do, I would hedge against the account, but not in that account. I would set up a separate account with your broker and use that as your manual account, because it's going to muddy the waters of analysis between what the system does in Alexander versus what goes on elsewhere. So I think that for now I would probably separate that out in two different accounts. Make sure I'm just sharing this screen here. There we go. So can you guys see the MyFX book? Make sure you get this hooked up to your accounts, both demo and live, please, because if you ever have any questions, I'm going to want to see a link to this. You have to go into the portfolio and you have to enable some of the links to not be private, because you can lock a lot of this stuff out, which is fine. But if you lock a lot of this stuff out and I can't see what the stats look like, it's hard for me to determine what's going on inside the account. So you can always send me the link, unlock the stats, right? And then you can lock them back up again once I've taken a look at the link. So if you're concerned about privacy, which I fully and completely understand, that's a way to sort of get it done. And by the way, stay tuned for the settings for the 25K account, please. We got them coming. I think I mentioned this before. Is there a better instrument than Euro JPY to add to Euro US? I would say stay tuned on that, which I've now said for how many, 2 weeks? Well, I think we're going to be bringing in some different stuff. But if you want, you can certainly. And I don't have the time in the course of a week to just do a deeper dive. But if you follow Trade Tracking with Jesse Kamer, his channel, he goes through in exhaustive detail, by the way, over the last week, how he trades the GBP NZD ring. In most cases, just that currency pair by itself. I saw the ones you posted in Telegram, but then they're showing the starting lot size of funds, which is showing using on the 25K account. So on the 25K account, and I'm pretty sure I have the settings posted on there for the 25K account in terms of the lot size, right? I get too many screens opened up to jump back to that. So see if somebody can answer that for me. Since there's in red folder news events today, should we turn on the software just for today, but shut it off again tonight? Courtney, in ideal, in a perfect world, you would have had the software running all day. But I commented to that on last Saturday. I was concerned about all the volatility we've been seeing, especially since some currencies have broken out of particular trends, and they're just going wild to the upside, seeking the next area of value, which essentially is the next pocket, if you will, of buyers versus sellers. So I suggested for simply some with the larger live accounts, maybe anybody with a live account, keep the demos on. I always want to run demos through all craziness in the market because it helps us build data. But the live accounts, if you want to have it on, it's probably kind of late for today because we're coming into these events Wednesday morning, so it doesn't really give you too much time. But ideally, I guess you could have it on for a couple hours. And, obviously, if it's Alexander, just approve the trades just for today, right? Just make sure they're closed out before these red news events tomorrow. Which could turn out to be a complete dud, by the way, right? This actually could have been a good week to trade. I mean, it hasn't been as wild in most currencies last week, in which case, maybe my advice on Saturday was wrong, right? It's certainly possible. But I'm trying to keep everybody as protected as I can, because some didn't. They were using crazy settings and they'd never traded demo accounts. And keep in mind, I'm fighting the same battle in my downline, even though I'm sort of like the mama bear of my group. I still have folks trying to set up live accounts, and they haven't even gone through a demo. And I'm like, what are you, crazy? You got to test this out. You got to see how the settings work. Always got to do the demos. I'll have a demo running for probably the rest of my life with different settings going, right? Always be testing out and learning. All right. So I got that question answered. What is your US dollar drawdown for the week with conservative settings for a demo account per Nick? I and our informant on this pair. Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the screen. And by the way, I just got the settings for the 25K live account. They're going to be posted on my Telegram channel. All right, so let's take a look at the. You're looking at my screen here. We are sharing the MyFX book account for the 25K live account. And this is the summary. I always like the summary because it breaks down just the entire, but the interesting thing is if we just look at the win rate, you notice it's not much lower than the Euro US dollar pair below it, right? And it's equal to the US JPY. So then I guess one would ask, well, why, in terms of profit, it's done better than the US dollar JPY, the USD. See that at the bottom? In terms of just profit, through what, 219 versus 360 trades. You can see that right there. I mean, it's still made money, but it's just had much more wild moves. But I mean, we're building essentially now, and not the biggest sampling size of trades, but in terms of just the total summary, we've had 901 trades executed in this account, and we've still got really good win rates here. Yes, we've had some changes to the settings that are more conservative now. And actually, let me post that before I forget. The channel is called Trade Tracking with Steve Vetterl. Settings are coming in right now. Here we go. And this is the explanation of the settings. Continue to ask questions in Q&A, because unless nobody's got any other questions, I'm going to end this call. So if you got anything, ask them now. Ask now or forever hold your peace. Right, here we go. Yes, my Telegram channel is going to be just really limited to stuff that goes on during the week, big events that happen. Obviously education related to different accounts or links to them and or the settings. What I do not have the time for, and one thing I do love about what Jesse's doing, is he's going through his specific mindset in the course of a week, in how he handles all of his NZD related trades. And that's really his expertise in that. So if you can follow along, some of it's a bit deep, but there is some serious knowledge being dropped in there that is, if one studies it enough, really putting you in a mindset of a manual or discretionary trader. And for that, I love the channel. I just do not have the time to be getting into that kind of detail in the course of a week for my channel. I want to keep it real high level, keep it real macro for everybody. All right, so thank you for the settings. Let's do a little bit more Q&A. Does it make sense to set the settings to short or long at any given time? Right now, Werner, I would not get involved in that. There's a whole other section, along with some of the new settings that have come out, which I have completely and in super detail put out on my Telegram channel. But I would not get into messing around with that at this point. Again, I'm getting a lot of questions related to manual trading. There's nothing wrong with it, guys. It's great stuff, but you really need to know what you're doing. And I would highly suggest opening up a separate account. So it's almost like hedge account against your Einstein or Alexander. Chris, settings are posted. We have settings posted for smaller accounts in there as well. Yes. So the dual sequences and the trend levels before hedging setups, Mariana, is in my Telegram channel. There's a whole explanation in there. Go ahead and read it. I think I did not understand your answer. I don't see any significant drawdown, Andy, in the US dollar JPY on my systems. All my settings are the same, except I still allowed the hedging after level 2. Drawdown is 5.5 weeks, performance is minus 2.91. I'm not sure what you want me to derive from that, Mark. All right, let me just take a quick peek through everything, make sure I have comments on everything I want to talk about here. Yeah, so I'm building a pretty good library up on my Telegram channel. A lot of that's covered there. Michael, you're going to have to be more specific. You put in what changed or made during the update. I'm not sure what you're talking about. The current update of the most recent versions of Einstein or Alexander, because we have posted the new settings that have been added to that. It's on my Telegram channel. There is, Mariana, there's no other way that I could explain that. That is broken down as it could possibly be. Okay, so one of the questions was related to settings on the 25K account. Just know this as well, so sort of an additional information. Settings that being run is the high volatility settings, essentially in 0.01 per 3K. So the reason we've done that is we're looking to be able to withstand a 900 pip move on all 3 pairs at the same time. So if stop losses needed to be increased, that will be done case by case, pair by pair. So we will leave the 250 to default intact. So we're in the process of connecting the 3K live account this week on high volatility settings as well. So stay tuned and I'll be able to show that. Let's take a quick couple more questions here. The Telegram channel is trade tracking, or trade tracker. Let's get that confused because Jesse's is trade tracking. It's trade tracker with Steve Vetterl. Jesse's channel is trade tracking with Jesse Kamer. Yeah, Courtney, the trend levels, it's all posted on my Telegram channel. It's actually an exhaustive explanation of that. I have $1,000 account in a significant drawdown. Double trend normal. 2 buys at 0.2, 2 buys at 12% normal. Anonymous, if you would please send me, as everybody's welcome to do, send me an email. If you need my email address, I can pop it in the chat room. I'll take a closer look at that trade. Let me just pop it in the chat room here. This is my email. If you send me an email, I want a screenshot of the settings. I want an FX book unlocked. Don't send me a link that takes me to a locked account, because then I have to reply back to your email, and it takes time. Always have our developers take a look at anything that's a standout trade for any issues. You guys can also open up a Zendesk link on that as well. But make sure you explain in detail what you think the problem is, and we can take a closer look at it. High volatility settings are just that. They're for periods of time where there's high volatility. For those that are in drawdown, just reading through some of these questions here. What do we do for the high volatility settings? So, Anonymous, I'm not sure if you saw my call 2 weeks ago with Tyler, our special guest. He is Auvoria's R&D and all-around trading and EA master. So he came on and talked about our new high volatility settings. I would go back and make sure you take a look at that. So the links, a couple folks are asking for the links to mine and Jesse's channels are in the chat window, not in the Q&A window. A couple questions I'm getting on people debating on whether they want to let the software to try and work through news to handle the drawdown instead of shutting trading off tomorrow. You're always welcome to do that. And Mark, I know you've asked a number of questions over the last few weeks. You sound like a really smart guy. So if you have the intelligence to be able to take or approve certain trades related to, I'm assuming this is Alexander, through news events, then you certainly know how they can impact it. And if news events come out completely against what the market's current thought process is, which is global central bank bailout, you could see some quick moves in Forex, and they could certainly blast through that 250 pip stop range pretty quickly. So if you're crystal clear on what can happen, you can certainly run through news. I know there are a fair amount of people that let it run through news. I haven't seen enough data on that yet. Do keep in mind that I'm in communication almost weekly. In many cases with live Zoom meetings with the developers. They are a very smart bunch. They are testing some new things. including potentially changing that MA from 20 to something higher during high volatility settings. But again, all needs to be announced in due time after we take a look at the data. All right, so we're half an hour in. Let's cut this call a little bit short today. Please communicate to your up and down lines about these calls. Please make sure that the up and down lines are subscribed to, at a minimum, Auvoria's big corporate channel on Telegram and me and Jesse. Today's the 9th of June. My name is Steve Vetterl. May the trades be with you.